Good day, morning, evening, night, wherever you are. Hello. It is the next segment in my series of videos, and we're going to be talking about the Thema Mundi. So, what is the Thema Mundi? What does it mean? What does it tell us? Where does it take us? If you're just starting, if you already know about it, what else is there to know about it? Because there's a lot of mysteries with this little old Thema Mundi, which is no little thing, because it's really everything. And what is it? It is the birth chart of our cosmos, of the universe itself. So, when you take your first breath, we cast a chart. But when the universe took its first breath, however we can even conceptualize that, the alignments of the planets in our cosmos looked as if the moon was at 15 degrees of Cancer and on the ascendant, and the sun was at 15 degrees of Leo in the second house. And from there, Mercury through Saturn were placed in the following domiciles with respect to their speeds. So Mercury, and they're all at 15 degrees. So Mercury's at 15 degrees of Virgo, Venus is at 15 degrees of Libra, Mars at 15 Scorpio, Jupiter at 15 Sagittarius, and Saturn at 15 Capricorn. Now, because this is hypothetically a real chart, it is subject to all of the astrological inquiries. Yep. So, there's a lot of information we can get from this chart about the nature of our universe and the nature of our reality that also are not only mystical truths into our life and our human experience and what it means, but also, even more relevantly and importantly, well, maybe not more importantly, actually, the opposite. It's not as important, but it's a immediately, directly subsequent fact that it is also giving us the code for our reality and thus for astrology. So if you want to learn astrology, everything you need to know is in the Thema Mundi. Period. Now, that being said, that depiction of what's there can be as simple or as complex as you want. And that was my intention in creating the poster called the Codex Mundi, which I made last year. I'm going to do another video just about that. But that whole project was about extending the Thema Mundi. So, I'll leave that at that. But we'll get back to that. But yeah, essentially the Thema Mundi is, you know, if you think about like your birth chart and all of your solar return charts, which you get over time on your birthday, every year, you know, that are like subsequent charts, they're all connected to that first birth chart you have. Or even for a country, you know, like its first, you know, inauguration, we cast a chart, or the establishment of a city, or a marriage, or a business, or whatever, a trip. And all subsequent things are subject to that one original thing. Well, guess what? The cosmos works the same way. And this isn't something, you know, people will give you this diagram when you first start learning astrology, and you are just kind of told, like, yeah, it's where the domiciles of the planets, you know, how they were originally formed, and how that sets up the scheme for all of the domiciles. And that's it. But when I tell you, there is so much more. That little chart, that again, can be so depicted so simple or so complexly if you want, that chart says everything about our reality. So, for example, the moon is in Cancer at 15 degrees and conjunct the degree of the ascendant. So the ascending degree of the universe is 15 degrees of Cancer. The ascending decan of the universe is the second decan of Cancer, ruled by Mercury. The ascending bound of Cancer, or of the ascendant, rather, is also ruled by Mercury. Now, Cancer as the conception point of the cosmos, the birth point of all life, which is in the ascendant, being the midpoint of Cancer, well, in the melothesia of the cosmos, Aries is the top, because Aries is on the midheaven when Cancer is rising, or rather Aries is basically the nonagesimal, so like the point 90 degrees backwards, the highest point of the ecliptic, not the culminating point, aka the point of the ecliptic crossing the meridian, but this is a whole other discussion anyway. Aries is the 10th whole sign house from Cancer when Cancer is rising. So that's where we start to put the signs on the body. Whereas Cancer, we get Aries, Taurus, Gemini. Cancer is the chest and the stomach. And our stomach, our belly, our womb, right here, where are we born into the universe? Well, that's through our belly button. You know, this all comes through right here. Our belly, our stomach. And just as life is born through the stomach, through the womb of the mother, so do we too literally connect to our mother and are, you know, fed, you know, through her, from her to us through our umbilical cord in the womb. So that's something to think about here. It also is a water sign, and we're born of water. We gestate in a liquid environment, and also the first life forms on Earth began in the ocean and made their way on land, right? So there's all of these, like, I'm talking biology, I'm talking physics, I'm talking chemistry. It's all in there. What else? What more about the Thema Mundi? There's so much. Well, the 10th sign, Aries, is ruled by Mars, and it is also the exaltation of the sun. So when we want to talk about, okay, domicile rulerships, I know last video we talked a little bit about like what all these different levels of these essential dignities are, what this mystery non-hierarchy is. It's not a hierarchy, guys, it's a level playing field. What this system is of ranking planets and their comfortability of positions through the signs, domicile rulerships are usually taught first and as the most powerful or important or whatever, and they're not. They're important, but they're not the most, they're not the most important. But next, second, you usually learn about exaltations, and we can map those exaltations onto the Thema Mundi, just like we can map everything else onto the Thema Mundi. So, for instance, the sun takes its exaltation in Aries, which is the 10th sign, the highest sign. And in the Thema Mundi, basically everything, so Saturn's in Capricorn, then in Aquarius, all the way around to Gemini, there's no planets. None. But there are other subtle objects residing there. I was talking with Patrick Watson the other day, and we were joking about how, you know, for the sun to be fallen in Uranus, for the sun to be fallen, exiled or in its detriment or in its opposite place from Leo, when it's in Aquarius, it's like it's anti-king. It's like against the king, the centralized power of Leo. And then we were talking about, yeah, well, you know, it is interesting how Uranus does appear in our cosmos visually for just the few days that he's opposing the sun, and you know, Aquarius is opposite to Leo, which is the sun's domicile, and yeah, so maybe hypothetically, you know, if you wanted to propose it, Uranus would be in Aquarius at 15 degrees in the 8th house of the Thema Mundi. You know, that's very radical, but we're just having this little discussion, and you know, in the same way, we can talk about what that means for instance, okay, one, integration of outer planets, asteroids, minor bodies, where are their homes? You know, if it exists up there, we have to find out where its home is. It comes from somewhere. There are sympathies. There are these little trace codes and pieces, like the Uranus thing, which again, modern astrologers that go super hard into trad astro, you know, immediately jump to this, like, relinquishing everything that came after 500 AD, or later, but whatever. The point is that, like, guys, we have other things that exist in our cosmos, and they're a part of our astrology, whether you like it or not, whether you use them or not. and they need to find their homes. Now that's not going to be easy. That's going to take a long time. I'm going to be way dead before we probably even come close to having an idea of how it all fits onto the scheme. But this is important, because if this Thema Mundi is supposed to be our model of the cosmos, where do the other things fit in here? Now, I'm not saying Uranus has to rule Aquarius universally and Saturn's gone. I'm not saying that. The domicile rulerships will never change. Any of those 5 levels of essential... period, Cam. Any level of essential dignity that's been established, 12 parts, bounds, monomoria, those all still exist. But here's the thing. Additional systems need to be created and integrated with our framework if you want to use those planets. Again, not saying the old systems are invalid, but we also need new ones. Does that mean they will exist in the same way that domicile rulers do? No. Maybe they just work as like sympathy points of like energy that we see when it moves into a sign. It's just more strong or more powerful or more vibrant somehow in the chart. And I think this is actually important to our discussion though, because, if we want to really learn how to model our cosmos, these guys have to fit into that picture. Now, with that being said though, coming back to the early cosmos, pre-discovery of other things than the visible planets and fixed stars, well, we have to fully understand that framework. I'm not going to say perfectly, but we need to have a full comprehension of how the system works together. And everyone should, in my mind, before you integrate all of the outer stuff willy-nilly. Now, again, I'm not saying you have to go and like just use the 7, and like quit everything else. However, I did that, kind of still do that. I don't practically use anything but the 7 planets. Now, again, but that's the thing. There already really is so much, though. Like, if we're not talking outer planets, minor bodies, asteroids, hypotheticals, there's already so much between the hundreds of sign subdivisions, the thousands of fixed stars, the numerous constellational images and mythologies. There's so much there that you would never need. Why the ancients never talked about, never hypothesized additional planetary spheres, because there's already so much to use in the visible cosmos. Now, again, we do need to use this stuff. We have to figure out how it fits with the old system, but my point still stands that with this Thema Mundi, everyone should understand each level as it moves outwards. So, somehow these asteroids around Mercury and Venus are some sub-level of their planetary sphere, which needs to be incorporated. Maybe they're like in some 12th parts or decans around, Mercury and Virgo in the 3rd house of the Thema Mundi, like whatever that even means for an asteroid to like occupy that space. But that's just what I'm saying. Maybe somehow each sign represents a planetary sphere. Maybe that's what it is. I'm literally just thinking and talking out loud right now. Like, I know I said a couple episodes ago this was just going to be casual, but yeah, I really have no direction for where half of the stuff I'm saying is totally going. So anyway, I think I'm going to kind of wrap it up though, because yeah, Thema Mundi, there's so much to say. Hermetic lots, okay, that's a whole other thing. In my guidebook, which you can purchase on my website if you want to learn more about the whole Codex Mundi thing, go there. I'll also make a video about it soon. But in the guidebook and on the poster, for instance, these lots, the hermetic lots, the lots of the planets. If you don't know what lots are, the Astrology Podcast just did an amazing episode with my friend Kier Ryberg on the Lot of Fortune and the lots of the hermetic lots of the planets and the Lot of Fortune and Spirit and all that stuff. Go watch that if you want to learn about lots. It's a great episode. But those can be put on the Thema Mundi, which I've never seen anyone really write about, but I kind of wrote out where they all land, how to calculate where they land on the Thema Mundi, and what they mean when they're in the different places, making different aspects, etc. For instance, the lot of Spirit falls into Gemini in the 12th house. What does that mean? Well, I read about that stuff already, so if you want to, again, expand our minds about what the Thema Mundi is capable of, go check out my guidebook if you're curious, or just meditate on it. You know, you'll get your own insights from that stuff too. But yeah, Thema Mundi, start from the basics, work your way out, and layer on the other systems like exaltations, bounds, trigon lords, etc. I'll save that for another time. I was going to say something about triplicity, but we'll get there. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode, random musings and thoughts on the Thema Mundi. I'll talk to you guys later. Ciao.